And in business news, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has inaugurated a new crude oil grade into the international crude oil market, Utapate crude oil blend. Now, the Utapate crude oil blend commenced operations in July 2024, located offshore Akwa Ibom State in Nigeria, with the first cargo headed for Spain from the Oilman Leasing 13, OML 13, fully operated by NNPC Limited upstream subsidiary. The crude oil blend's current production stood at 28,000 barrels per day, with potential to increase it to 50,000 barrels per day, with sulfur content of a new crude at 0.0655%. Now, the Spanish oil giant Repsol won the initial cargo of 950,000 barrels of the new crude blend. Gulf Transport and Trading, another lead crude oil dealer, also secured the cargo's tender for August and September 2024. While according to sectorial utilization of foreign exchange data contained in the quarterly statistical bulletin of the Central Bank of Nigeria, the import of food gulped about $689 million in the first quarter of 2024, 17% of the total foreign exchange spent on the month. Earlier today, in a one-on-one chat with an investment strategy and management senior associate with AfriInvest West Africa, Mr. Temitope Omoshui, he explained that to address food insecurity in Nigeria, federal government must increase production and reduce importation across all sectors.
We have to produce locally, right? As a matter of fact, you would see that economies globally are trying to ensure that they have more security when it comes to food and energy, because we're in a world of slow down. They call it globalization, right? Slow down in globalization, where economies are trying to ensure that there's sufficient food supply domestically before they can now consider other economies that need food supply. We saw that in 2022 when a lot of countries hoarded wheat, right? That led to spike in price of wheat across the globe. And even in Nigeria, we saw economies that also hoarded rice, palm oil, just to mention a few, and that led to the major surge we saw, right? So it's quite obvious that we have to look for sustainable measures, right, to address this dilemma. Because
and in a nationwide broadcast aimed at addressing the nationwide protest, President Bola Tinubu appealed to Nigerians and other protesters to suspend the action, promising his administration was ready to listen and address the concerns of the protesters. Again, on Business Nigeria, the Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry highlighted some measures the FG can take to address some of the challenges raised by the protesters.
Can we have more focus on more funds being allocated or released into infrastructural development? With the new capital expenditure component of the budget, which is about 12.2 trillion, I understand that the release of only about 1.8 trillion by mid-year. That's just like a drop of water compared to what is required. If we don't have the right infrastructure, businesses have to provide their own infrastructure, and that makes them not very competitive. Because as the cost of production increases, then businesses will want to, of course, pass on the cost to consumers. But remember, consumer spending is dampened during this period. So consumers are not even able to take on all that cost. You talk of AFCFTA. That's a conversation that we need to have, because we need to project that we are the largest economy, or even in terms of population. Mm-hmm. Now, how do we ensure that the goods that we produce in Nigeria are competitive outside Nigeria? How do we ensure that we can match the goods coming from China?
All right, the African Association of Professional Freight Forwarders and Logistics of Nigeria is calling for dialogue and suspension of the nationwide protest. They warned that the ongoing demonstration could worsen the economic impact, leading to higher prices for goods and services. TVC News senior business correspondent Ifunanya Eze reports.
The African Association of Professional Freight Forwarders and Logistics of Nigeria supports President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's call for an end to the protest. The leadership of the group cautions that continued demonstration could deter investors and increase the cost of living for Nigerians.
The protest is not the best for the country, in as much as it's a civil right of everyone that to express your feelings. But we have to look at, if all things, the protests continue to go on, it's going to increase the inflation, because the shipping and terminal operator will never refuse them to collect their rents. And by the time you collect rent in the form of demurrage, that's added to the cost of bringing the cost either to in and out of the country. So in that case, the hardship will become more harder. Then, looking about the way it's going to portray us in the Committee of Maritime Nations, it will discourage foreign direct investment to this country, because people will look at the country that the country is not stable, and it will discourage them.
In their recommendations for boosting economic growth and ensuring sustainable development, the group advocates for export promotion to address Nigeria's trade deficit.
Customs should even embark on more opportunity how we can support the government to encourage our exports. Because when the revenue is coming more on exports, it's better than more on imports. You being know Nigeria as an import-dependent country, and that's what's making Nigeria and Naira's currency to be weaker. So if we can have an encouragement on exports, we will be able to have foreign currency, and this will indirectly motivate people to invest in this country.
The importance of including farmers and local manufacturers in discussions about tax and duty adjustment on essential commodities was also emphasized. Ifunanya Eze, TVC News, Lagos.
Securities trading in Nigeria